This story broke this morning, March 6th, Day 7 of Operation Epic Fury. The Washington Post, citing 3 US officials familiar with the intelligence, reported that Russia has been providing Iran with targeting information to attack American forces in the Middle East since the conflict began on February 28th. The information shared by Moscow includes the locations of US military warships and aircraft operating in the region. All 3 officials spoke on condition of anonymity because of the sensitivity of the intelligence. The Russian embassy in Washington did not respond to requests for comment. If confirmed at the official level, which it has not yet been, with no public White House or Pentagon statement issued as of this morning, this is the single most consequential development of the entire war, not because it changes the battlefield picture today, but because of what it means for every assumption the United States has been operating under since February 28th. Start with what is confirmed and what is not. 3 US intelligence officials told the Washington Post that Russia has shared the positions of American military assets, specifically warships and aircraft, with Iran since the fighting began. The exact scope of what was shared remains unclear. It is not confirmed whether the intelligence included troop movement data from US bases across the Gulf, the operational schedules of US carrier strike groups, the patrol routes of US fast attack submarines, or specific targeting coordinates. What is confirmed is that the information was provided specifically to help Iran identify and plan attacks against American forces. That is the phrase that matters. Provided to help Iran attack Americans. The Washington Post report notes this is the first indication that another major US adversary has become involved in the conflict, even indirectly. That phrase, even indirectly, is carrying enormous weight in how this story is being framed. But indirect involvement through intelligence sharing that directly enables lethal attacks on American military personnel is not a peripheral form of involvement. It is a material contribution to combat operations against the United States Armed Forces. The legal, diplomatic, and military implications of that are not peripheral either. To understand why Russia would do this, you need to understand the relationship between Moscow and Tehran that has been building for the past 4 years with increasing depth and specificity. The relationship is not ideological, it is transactional and mutually reinforcing. Iran has supplied Russia with Shahed series attack drones that have been used extensively in Ukraine, the same drone design family that the IRGC has been firing at Gulf states and Israel throughout Operation Epic Fury. Iran has supplied Russia with ballistic missiles. Russia has provided Iran with advanced air defense components, satellite intelligence, and military technical assistance. The 2 countries have conducted joint naval exercises in the Gulf of Oman annually for several years. They share a strategic interest in weakening American military dominance in regions that border both their spheres of influence. And critically, they share a specific and acute grievance about the current conflict. Russia publicly called the US-Israeli strikes an unprovoked act of armed aggression and has a formal military pact with Iran, though that pact does not require Russia to come to Iran's direct military defense. The Washington Post analysis published yesterday, before the targeting intelligence report broke, assessed that the Iran war actually highlights Russia's fall in the Middle East. The argument was that Russia's inability or unwillingness to directly intervene on Iran's behalf exposes the limits of Russian power projection outside its immediate neighborhood. That analysis was published 12 hours before the targeting intelligence story. The 2 reports together paint a more complex picture. Russia unable or unwilling to fight for Iran directly, but willing to feed it the intelligence it needs to hit American targets more precisely. The strategic logic from Moscow's perspective is not difficult to construct. Every American warship struck, every US base hit, every American soldier killed in the Middle East creates political pressure in Washington that the Pentagon must manage simultaneously with the Ukraine file. Senator Richard Blumenthal already said publicly from insider classified briefing that the Iran campaign is burning through munitions that Ukraine needs to survive. Russia providing Iran with targeting data that makes its attacks on American assets more precise and more damaging directly serves Russian interests in Ukraine, not by firing a single Russian weapon, not by deploying a single Russian soldier, but by stretching American military resources and political attention simultaneously across two theaters. It is, in strategic terms, a nearly cost-free intervention that generates maximum disruption for minimum Russian exposure. The Gulf state frustration angle adds another layer that the Washington Post confirmed in a separate report published this morning. The Trump administration is confronting mounting discontent from allies in the Persian Gulf who complained they were not given adequate time to prepare for Iranian drone and missile barrages. Senior officials from Bahrain, the UAE, Kuwait and Qatar told the AP they were not given enough advance warning before the strikes began to properly position their air defences, resulting in Iranian weapons getting through to civilian and government infrastructure that better prepared defences might have stopped. That complaint from America's own allies in the theatre is now being read in the context of the Russian intelligence sharing report with a new and urgent question. If Iran had Russian satellite data on the positions of American warships and aircraft, did it also have better intelligence on the positioning and coverage gaps of Gulf state air defense networks? That question does not have a confirmed answer, but it is the question every Gulf Defense Ministry is asking this morning, and the fact that it is being asked changes the operational security posture of every American allied facility in the region immediately. The US government's response to the Washington Post report has been silence, no White House statement, no Pentagon press briefing comment, no State Department response. The Russian embassy's non-response to requests for comment is its own kind of answer. Moscow has been publicly calling for a ceasefire and describing the US-Israeli strikes as unprovoked aggression. Those public statements and the reported private intelligence sharing are running on parallel tracks, the same dual-track posture that has characterized both Iran's and Russia's behavior throughout this conflict. Public calls for de-escalation, private actions that enable escalation, both simultaneously. The broader alignment picture that this development confirms is one that US intelligence agencies have been tracking and warning about for years. The Russia-Iran-China trilateral relationship, formalized through annual naval exercises, arms agreements, intelligence cooperation, and coordinated economic positioning, has been described in multiple US national security strategy documents as a convergence of authoritarian states with overlapping interests in undermining American-led global order. The current conflict is the first time since that trilateral relationship was built that it is being stress-tested in an active shooting war involving American forces. Russia providing targeting intelligence is the first confirmed data point of what that stress test actually looks like in operational practice. China has not been reported to have provided similar assistance, but Chinese satellite coverage of the Middle East is extensive, and the question of what Beijing has or has not shared with Tehran is now being asked in Washington with a new urgency. The House of Commons Library briefing published today confirmed that Russia has a military pact with Iran, but that the pact does not require Russia to come to Iran's defense. That legal distinction is about to get a great deal of scrutiny in Washington, in Brussels, and in every NATO capital, because the question is not whether Russia is obligated to defend Iran. The question is whether Russia providing targeting data that helps Iran kill American soldiers constitutes an act of war against the United States under any applicable framework of international law or US military doctrine. There is no clean precedent for this specific scenario. A nuclear-armed state providing real-time targeting intelligence to a belligerent in an active conflict with the United States in the post-Cold War era. The lawyers in the Pentagon are working on that question right now, and the answer they reach will determine whether this war, which is already the most complex and expansive American military operation since Iraq 2003, acquires a dimension that no current operational plan has fully accounted for.